So today we're talking about the Council of Elrond.
My favorite council ever.
Now, I don't know about you, but when I used to read this as a child, I was intimidated by the Council of Elrond because it's the longest chapter in the Fellowship of the Ring by far. But now I really appreciate it because it's so deep. It's like you're reading this story about hobbits, and all of a sudden, it
Yes,
brings in all
yes,
the ancient lore, and all these different groups come together. And in a way, it seems almost like a little bit unbelievable that some of these groups would be like they
right.
didn't.
Well,
Elrond says that he didn't go out and invite all these groups to come. But he said they came like by a stroke of luck or chance, that they're all here having
well,
this meeting.
Elrond did say this kind of was happenstance, but larger things are probably at work here. So it's
Right,
all
right, right.
kind of
I don't want it to make it sound like I think this is all just some happy accident, like you get in the Rings of Power. Because in the Rings of Power, there are tons of happy accidents, like, oh, he just happens to be in the middle of the ocean, and she just happens to be running into him. It's not
right.
that, because the wheels are all set in motion for this event of the Council of Elrond. You have everyone looking for the ring. You have the Black Riders looking for the ring. They're asking the dwarves in
Right.
the Lonely Mountain, so they're wondering about what's going on. So people are talking, and they're like, "Hey, let's go figure this out. Let's go talk to Elrond. He knows." And so that's kind of why everyone's everyone's converging. So
Right, right.
there's a
But
reason for it. It's not just an accident.
yeah, but I also think that Tolkien probably read that chapter and he's like, you know what? I've got to put a line in that says, kind of explains this all away, like again, like kind of explains away the coincidence, so to speak. You know what I'm
Right.
talking
Well,
about?
the most coincidental of these explanations is the dream that Faramir has.
Like in the context of enjoying the book and not reading too deep into it, like, it doesn't bother me at all.
No, no,
It's
it
like
never bothered me before, but
right,
now
right. But as a little bit of a critical read, yeah, it's kind of like oh really, you
we're
really
reading
had
a little bit more critically now, and it's like at first glance, when I was just reading through it, it almost sounded like my brother was having this weird dream, and so I took this 100-day journey to figure out
you
what
know,
this dream was all about. But
yeah,
it wasn't as ridiculous as that, because going back and reading it, it was like Faramir was having this recurring dream, and then one day Boromir had the dream where it was like, seek for the sword that was broken in Imladris it dwells, right? And then something about halflings, and so he's like, "Oh, what a perplexing riddle! I'm off to."
yeah. But here's the thing: like Faramir is probably having like these dreams, like for months. Like these dreams are torturing me. It's like, yeah, it's just a dream. And then Boromir has it one night, and then all of a sudden he's like, okay, gotta go and see Elrond.
He's like, "I know what you meant. That dream was weird."
That was crazy. The fact that like Boromir just kind of like rolled in.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the way they introduced him was like, here's a traveler from the south or whatever. Like basically, he's like a man who came, like and he was described as very noble.
Okay, here.
Right?
And seated a little apart was a tall man with a fair and noble face, dark-haired and gray-eyed, proud and stern of glance. He was
Okay,
cloaked
so
and booted as if for a journey on horseback, and indeed, though his garments were rich, his cloak was lined with fur, and they were stained with long travel.
yeah.
So,
So, but what I'm saying is like when I saw like the particularly the Bakshi film, like introducing Boromir and to a lesser degree the Peter Jackson, it's like they set him up. They set Boromir up to be a little bit prouder. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like I don't know if Tolkien tried to telegraph the punch, like the betrayal, so to speak.
yeah.
But I never saw Boromir as like this kind, noble type
Oh, I see what you're
man.
saying.
You know,
So you're saying that Tolkien describes him here gives him credit as a tall, noble person, but you always saw him more as a threat.
Well, I knew that what the betrayal was coming. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, because I
Hmm.
saw the movie. Because I mean, in fairness, like I read The Hobbit when I was
Hmm.
6,
Hmm.
right? But I didn't
Yeah.
really read The Lord of the Rings until like a few years later, and by that time I'd already seen, yeah, that exactly. I had already seen the Bakshi version, and I mean, and here, like, when you look at this, well, actually, I mean, he looks like a man, I
Right.
mean, and then Aragorn kind of looks like Aragorn, like there's a little bit of a different air to it, and like the way
He
that
doesn't have
they,
a beard. He's not described as having a beard and Viking
no,
helmet, is he?
no, no, he just probably won. Maybe it's the Viking helmet that threw me. But my point is like, I'm curious. What was your first impression of Boromir? Like not seeing the movies and
Yeah.
reading
So
about.
my first impression was, so I didn't see the Bakshi cartoon before I read the books as
Right.
a as an adolescent, and yeah, there was no telegraph of, oh, this guy's someone you need to watch out for, other than the fact that right away he was the one who counseled, let's just take the ring and use it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
that in and of itself puts him in the suspicious camp.
Right. Right.
I think as far as Tolkien is concerned, that was like, okay, the whole idea is like the ring, its power corrupts you, even if you're of good intention. You start to wield the ring and its power corrupts you. It makes you seek power for its own sake. This ego boost of like, I control the world. And that in and
I,
of itself will drive a well-intentioned person into evil. So the
but
fact
do you
that
think?
Boromir wants to use the ring, even for good, noble purposes, it's like, okay, maybe he's someone you need to kind of keep an eye on.
Right. Right. But do you think that they could have downplayed it a little bit more because he was like, well, we should use the ring. It's a weapon that was delivered to us, and yada yada
Hmm.
yada, right? Um, and that should have I think that should have put him in a suspicious the suspicion camp. And it's kind of odd again on the reading that they would be like, oh yeah, well you're one of the nine. You know what I'm talking about? I mean,
You're a suspicious character that we hardly know. Join the
yeah,
nine, please.
yeah,
That's a
join the
good.
most
That's a good point.
join the literal most important kind of company that has ever set out,
Hmm.
at least in the third age.
Yeah, I mean, clarify this for me because I'm not entirely sure, but I imagine Gandalf knows Boromir pretty well because he knows who Denethor is, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he's aware
I
of
mean,
Boromir, but does
Denethor. I
anyone
mean,
else really know this guy?
again, that's what I'm saying. I mean, but I mean, the fact that Boromir and Aragorn are almost direct rivals. Do you know what I'm talking about? I mean,
Well,
Boromir has claimed to rule Minas Tirith,
hmm,
right? And then here comes Aragorn,
right,
right? Who is like the rightful heir, like
right.
the king of all the lands. It's kind of a weird dynamic that they set.
A normal human emotion to the situation would be some jealousy and suspicion. So Boromir should be kind of jealous of like, hey, I'm the son of the Steward of Gondor. Who's this guy who thinks he can like upstage me and take
Yeah,
over my
yeah.
realm and these things. But I don't know, to Boromir's credit, he never actually seems to he never articulates suspicion or jealousy of Aragorn himself that I can recall. Do you recall? I mean, other
They
than he at first, there's that scene where there's a little bit of iciness between them. Like he's like, "I'm not here to beg for people to help me."
well, look at the last line. He looked again at Aragorn, and doubt was in his eyes.
Yes, okay, that's what
I
I'm
mean, that
thinking
kind
of.
of sums it up.
Yeah, so he looked at it again at
Yeah.
Aragorn, and doubt was in his eyes. Like, but it's not jealousy was in his eyes. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean,
It's not
look,
like, oh, or fear like, oh, here's the guy that's going to take over my realm.
yeah, it's kind of like if this guy's going to take over his realm, he's going to need like to have a little bit more people vouch for him.
A little more je ne sais quoi.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but I know what you. Hey. And really doesn't get won over until he's on his deathbed, so to speak.
Right, but
We
though
don't know
he's
that
not convinced, right? But here's the thing: he's not convinced by Aragorn. But I don't think you can fault him for that because I mean,
No.
Aragorn doesn't cast a particular like he's even Tolkien even said he's back in his ranger garb.
Right.
So he's not like dressed up in all his kingly robes or anything. He just looks like
Looks like a ranger. He was like, oh look, like yeah. But here's the thing though. I mean, here's the thing. Like when like everything right now is setting up Boromir to be tempted by the ring. He's got doubt in his eyes. He does, again, like they're setting him up to fail, I guess. I mean, like kind of like a
Tolkien.
So the ring is kind of reading Boromir right here, and kind of like, all right, here's another, here's my out, so to speak. If the ring is indeed alive.
If the ring is sentient, you think the ring is thinking, "Oh, here's a corruptible will," or someone who
more or less, yeah. But the point is that like there was the entryway, and the thing is, like, I don't think that Boromir is evil, so I don't think it was for his own glory that he needed the ring, but it was to protect Minas Tirith, and regardless of anything, he has a need, and I think the ring like would pick up on that, and it's kind of like, all right, this is our this is my project for the next 4 chapters here. That's what I'm thinking.
What's his project? To like
if the ring indeed had like a sentience or whatever you want to call it, like it's thinking, oh, this is my project, little Boromir here.
Gonna work on tempting this guy.
Got to work on tempting that guy. This is like, yes, I'm going to be a seductress or a seductor or whatever, and just kind of, So yeah, so I do think, like, reading a little bit more, I think it was clear from the beginning that Boromir was going to be the one.
Right, but you are right though. He's not depicted as evil necessarily. I don't think Tolkien is so. I mean,
no.
Tolkien would say that the Lord of the Rings is about a story of good and evil, but not every character is. In fact, no character is all good or all evil.
No,
I think every character has these different tendencies.
Boromir was probably like, he was the man that was strong. He probably won all the contests and stuff like that.
Right.
Boromir, right? Where he, in his, I don't want to say hubris because that's not quite it, right?
It's borderline hubris. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but he felt like, if I had this ring, I could save the day. And I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for my people, because I want my people to go on. But really, at the end of the day, it's, he probably did want the glory for himself, and probably like, and kind of put, again, that's,
I mean, if anything, I see Boromir as like kind of a short-sighted, again, well-intentioned. I don't think he wanted the glory, quote unquote, for himself. Maybe he was used to getting his way as the older brother or whatever. But he seems to me kind of almost like this, pardon for the jocks in our listenership, but like a short-sighted kind of meat-headed jock who's like, just, what are you talking about? Just give it to me. I'll get it done. I'll score the touchdown. Just give me the ball.
Just give me the ball. Like, I'm going to put you all on my back. I'm going to take us to
carry this team to the championship. And
I'm not doing it for me. I'm not doing it for me.
Right. I mean, but he's like that. But
revel in his glory.
A little meat-headed, a little short-sighted, but well intentioned, I think. But that's
right. But again,
the read I give on him.
I think because of his bravery, so to speak, right, that he did. Like, I think like, if you take Aragorn probably had the strength of will to wield the ring, and
if
probably
anyone.
probably defeats Sauron, and that's why he was able to wrest. Again, we'll talk about this later, but he was able to wrest away the Palantir from Sauron and use it to look around.
You're right. Aragorn could probably do pitched battle or whatever with Sauron, and the fact that he's Elendil's heir, and Elendil and his father were able to kick Sauron's butt a long time ago.
Yeah.
Then who's to say that Aragorn can't do the same thing? He probably could. But in Tolkien's moral universe, the fact that Aragorn could defeat Sauron would only leave the question of then what happens to Aragorn. And I think in Tolkien's moral universe, Aragorn would be eventually corrupted by the ring. He would be like maybe not a Dark Lord, but kind of a dim Lord.
No, I think
a slightly off Lord. You don't think?
No,
you don't think Aragorn would be corrupted by the ring?
No, I think he would absolutely.
Sauron?
Oh no, he would absolutely be corrupted. That was the whole thing. Yeah, right. He would absolutely be corrupted.
That's why.
But my point
that's why he can't go that way.
Yeah. But my point is, if anybody was going to take the ring and defeat Sauron, it would be Aragorn.
It would be Aragorn. But it leaves the question of then what?
Right. But what I'm saying is, Aragorn knew what the then what was, and that's why he was never tempted by the ring.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Where Boromir didn't, because Boromir
exactly short-sighted. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Well, now that we're in agreement on that one. Yes.
Was it ever was it ever clear though that Boromir did know Gandalf? I mean, everybody seems to know Gandalf, but
yeah. But again, getting back to that question, it's not. I don't think he's well known, even if he's kind of known. I'm sure Gandalf, who knows Denethor, and Aragorn, who knows Denethor, would probably know who Boromir is as the son of Denethor.
Right.
But the fact that he's kind of an unknown quantity, it makes me think: why are they putting him? As we said, why are they putting him in this very special 9? Group of 9 with this top secret mission. Like a totally unvetted individual.
Right. Well, I mean, but again, it worked out because, honestly, there was a decision that needed to be made, and we'll talk about that decision later. But Boromir made that decision for the company, at the cost of his own life. He decided he wanted the ring. It didn't work out, but now it sent Frodo and Sam on their true quest. It was.
Well, that's also interesting. The fact that if it weren't for Boromir, it kind of reminds me of the whole Gollum thing. If it weren't for Boromir, Frodo wouldn't have gone off when he did on his own. Mm-hmm. And if it weren't for Gollum, all these things, many of these things would never have happened. So the ring, fortuitousness or fate or whatever it is, uses slightly corrupted people for its ends, but it always ends up working out for the better. I don't know, the whole idea that Tolkien would say that something like no one is without purpose.
Right.